What everyone was waiting for was the lightsaber duel. When that's up there on the screen, you're caught up in the drama of it. You're not thinking about how it was made. It truly is mind-boggling how many people, how many thousands of hours it takes to make just one sequence. A sequence that's over virtually within a minute. An interesting experiment is to actually take a sequence of shots, maybe less than a minute, and analyze how many people were involved in the making of that sequence. Just as extraordinary how one little scene can involve so many different people. Within this brief moment of the film, you really have a window into the entire process of what it took to make Episode 3. The stunt department designs everything from the largest action sequence to the smallest leap. Nick Gillard, the stunt coordinator on Episode 3, supervises a small army of people that includes the riggers who outfit the actors in harnesses and wires, and all the stuntmen who take the place of digital characters who will be added later, and stunt doubles for all of the actors. It was really important for both George and I to bring out Nick as soon as possible. So he came about 4.5 months before we actually started shooting. I got him a very small video crew because it was very important that he did as much test footage as possible. We wanted to edit all of the sequences that he had created together with real cuts, add sound effects, and show them to George so that he could be part of the process of creating the choreography for each sequence. Nick choreographs all of these fights, and they're all character-driven. His mind is always working. How can he make each move reflect the attitude, what is happening between these two guys? And Nick has a very specific move to indicate exactly what he thinks both characters are thinking at every single moment.
It was a challenge in the Obi-Anakin fight, because 3 or 4 minutes in, you get over the initial explosion of the fight, of why they're fighting, and all the flashy moves are done. We then had to work out how you would fight somebody. It's like fighting yourself. We did loads of sections where exactly that happened, where they just couldn't get through. They just match each other perfectly.
That was good. Yeah. That's good.
We had to build a set that would actually move and go upright. It starts horizontal and moves vertical, and the actors have to be able to act on that while it's moving. So there's a lot of interaction at the end between the floor effects people and the stunt people and Nick Gillard, the choreographer of all this. And they had to all coordinate how they were going to accomplish this with the visual effects people on how that was going to look on the screen after it was all finished.
We've got 2 really good stunt doubles, Nash Edgerton and Ben Cook, for Obi and Anakin, but they rarely get to work because the boys do it pretty much themselves.
For those 1 or 2 or 3 difficult shots that you have in the movie where they physically cannot do the shot, we let the stunt double do that, but then you have to have a scanning crew come in and they scan both actors from every single angle, and then we map on each one of the actors' face onto that stunt double. The compositing group brings it all together. They come in, they take all the separate elements and seamlessly blend them in to create the final shot.
As a compositor, we're basically the last ones in the chain. We get the elements from all the different sources, like model elements, miniature elements. We get elements from second unit, people against blue screen, the animation department, and we just combine it all to the final film frame. For this element alone, we have maybe 10 different passes, and we have, the lava, we have smoke elements, different smoke elements for the foreground, for the background, and some sparks and some ambers, And it's actually a lot of fun to find the right element and make it work within your shot.
A sequence of this level of complexity takes an enormous amount of time and effort from many people that are working long hours. At the end of the day, we're almost finished here, and I still look up there and I can't believe we've done what we've done.
Without a doubt, Industrial Light and Magic is the premier visual effects house in the world. Every single scene of Revenge of the Sith had at least one effect, and many shots had dozens and dozens of elements. The lightsaber duel was a huge challenge. ILM had to take footage shot on green screen stages and make it appear to have been shot on a real location, a volcanic planet that really only exists in George's imagination. The visual effects producers at ILM, led by executive producer Denise Ream, supervise all the production coordinators, the assistants, the managers who make sure that the myriad of effects departments working on the sequences come together smoothly and on budget.
There's probably 150 people working on this one sequence. It's another production happening with the same scope and scale as a live-action crew.
So this time, when we open the main gate, we want to try to find a height and just hold it there, right? Okay, thank you.
You know, once I saw the storyboards and the animatics, I began formulating a plan of who I actually wanted to work on the film. John Knoll worked as long as possible by himself to create the visual effects for the film. When we decided to add a second supervisor, due to my relationship with Roger, we thought he would be a really great addition to the team.
I was very excited to be involved with Mustafar. It sounded fantastic and it looked a real challenge. I mean, there's a large piece of work, lots of technical things, but also I just liked the look of it.
While I sort of oversee the crew, Nina and Janet handle the day-to-day production management of the sequence.
This is a list of shots we have turned over so far, so you can take a look at those specifically, and a list of just this is from the ranch with all the shots. And this afternoon we have the Mustafar meeting to go over the miniature shoot, to try to kind of just do a miniature shoot turnover.
I brought some more stuff for you guys to look at here.
Thank you. For the volume of work at ILM, we have several producers and several people in each position, and we just run our own house from start to finish. We oversee the production of many, many artists.
It's quite a logistical puzzle to try and figure out how you're going to get everything through the pipeline.
People commonly refer to us as runners. We do a lot of running around. We're basically the gophers of the crew. We do a lot of administrative office responsibilities, a lot of copying of scripts, copying of documentation. We set up a lot of the reviews and set up the dailies between the visual effects supervisors and the artists. We also are responsible for setting up the reviews between the visual effects supervisors and George over in the theater.
Whoa.
It's mind-boggling how much work goes into this movie.
The digital environment and matte painting groups apply their artistry with computers to create entire virtual worlds, often incorporating footage we've shot in the real world, like the eruption of Mount Etna in Italy.
We're taking all of those pieces and, extracting lava, extracting smoke, combining those with computer-generated images and coming up with really nice stuff.
And essentially, it's a giant backdrop, and it's going to be used for the entire Mustafar sequence. So I needed something to start with, and I actually had kind of an idea just driving to work one day, and that was I was driving past the gravel parking lot, the overflow parking lot here at ILM, and I photographed some stills of the gravel parking lot. You can kind of see it there if we zoom in really close, and that sort of became the beginnings of the lava ocean. And once I finished the painting, then it became time to animate it. As you can see here, I've gone through and moved all the clouds as well as all of the lava ocean. It took me probably several months to actually complete the final 25,000 pixel wide painting.
If one person was working on it in a linear time frame, it would probably take him 2 or 3 years to get that work done.
Digital technology has completely revolutionized the visual effects industry. But sometimes nothing beats the old-fashioned use of models and miniatures. And we don't always look to the future. We often look back. ILM has a substantial practical modeling group, which was instrumental in creating the Mustafar scenes.
Oh, permission to come aboard? Yes.
Lava is quite a difficult thing to do inside a computer. A physical model, you can build it, you can look at it, and you can light it, and it behaves in a kind of a very controllable way.
And then the big structure that holds the control arms is here.
The organic nature of Mustafar and sort of the rock lava planet enabled us to build it fairly quickly.
The material itself breaks in a way like rocks do. It does that kind of thing. You can take this tool, but eventually you can make it look like a mountain. The whole set is tilted at 10 degrees, and it tilts much like a wheelbarrow, so that we can adjust the angle of it depending on how fast we want the flow.
Most of the time for Mustafar went into developing the lava and the lava crust.
But essentially, you're using a methacil, which is a food additive, and you're coloring it and underlighting it so that you have a perspex base to the river, because obviously lava emits light. And then the other thing was just the speed that the lava moved at. I looked at a lot of reference, and actually it moves at any speed you want it to. George felt initially the same way as I felt, that it should be moving slower. But when I showed him the two side by side, straight away we were in agreement. It should be moving quickly because it just is so much more exciting.
Motion control enables us to capture an environment with a camera move that can be exactly repeated over and over again. Just as in live action, we choose lenses, camera angles, filters, lighting, and effects like smoke, all to create and capture exotic worlds like Mustafar that don't exist in real life.
Sometimes it's a little more effective to go heavier smoke, so I'm just judging it by eye as I go through, and that's kind of the beauty of HD, is you see what you're going to get as you're shooting it. It's working out great. It's really giving it some more depth and scale.
What we do is we light it in different ways and we photograph it in different ways. So we have these component pieces, and because you're shooting it using a motion control rig, each one of the passes actually marries together, so you can mix them together. All these elements create the atmosphere and sort of ambience of the place.
Chris, it looks good. Let's say 100% on the lava. Light's good. Okay, I'm rolling.